Hello, welcome to My First Time, where we find out about the gaming history of some of your favourite people in the gaming world. Today, we have Leahviathan, who, you know, you're a presenter, streamer, cosplayer extraordinaire sort of thing, I suppose.
I like the word extraordinaire, thank you. That makes me feel very special. I like to do a bit of everything, yeah. So I started as a streamer and worked my way up to, at the moment, presenting with Xbox UK.
Cool.
Yeah.
And obviously, we'll get into finding out how you ended up sort of working for Xbox UK, but we're going to start the podcast with the important gaming question, which is, what was your first time?
My first ever game. Honestly, it's kind of hard to say because, I mean, my dad had all the really retro games. We played on his Atari all the time. Loads of the games where you load in with a tape and you're choosing your own adventure, and there's a manual about 3 inches thick to decide which one you want to do. But the ones I really remember are when I got a Nintendo 64 for it might be my 8th birthday, I think.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was a very weird child. I loved watching snooker, and I could name every single snooker player. So, of course, this would transfer over to the games I played on Nintendo 64. And I did like Mario, but my favourite game was F1, Grand Prix. And when I was a kid, I called it Grand Prix, because I didn't know it was Grand Prix. So.
I'm pretty sure I did exactly the same. So I think I was probably a teenager, and I was like, yeah, that's not how it's meant to be.
My mum didn't correct me for months. Every time I come home, I'm like, Mum, can I play Grand Prix? And she'd be like, yeah, go on then.
Just giggling at you saying the word pricks, basically.
I'm like, thanks, Mum. Cheers for that.
So can you remember the first game was Grand Prix or Grand Prix, the first game you probably played on the N64?
It was either that or Super Mario 64, which I think is a lot of people's staple game as well.
Yeah.
So between those two, it was, there's a pretty even time spent in them. Not to say I was any good at F1, but, you know, I did have a real big crush on Michael Schumacher for whatever reason. Just in that game, that was it. As in,
the way he looked in that game, or?
To be honest, just like that man's style. Just,
fair enough.
Had a lot going for him.
Mario 64 obviously more iconic than F1 97?
Probably. God knows at this point.
But what about your favourite game? What would you say is your favourite game of all time?
Of all time? I mean, the one that has changed my life and influenced pretty much everything I am today has got to be Destiny. But it managed to capture my imagination and my interest in a way that no other game I'd managed to do at that point. And that's not to say I played a lot of games. I enjoyed things like Fallout, Borderlands. I kind of enjoyed them, and I played a lot of Halo and Call of Duty. Yeah. But Destiny was the first game that really hooked me into the universe in a way that no other games had quite managed to do yet.
So you went into Destiny already knowing a bit of the Bungie background and the way they do their shooters, at least.
Yeah, so I was playing a lot of Halo. And of course they were teasing Destiny. They had loads of posters in Halo. That was kind of oh, by the way, we've got a game coming out. And from then, I was extremely excited because Halo was just fantastic. Halo was my favourite game until Destiny came along. So,
which Halo would you say is your favourite out of all of them?
It's really hard to say. I came in at a time when Halo 3 was kind of the multiplayer game, so I played a lot of Halo 3. But then Halo Reach got me as well. The story was so emotional. The multiplayer was my favourite multiplayer, which is probably a very controversial opinion. But it had a bit of everything. Reach. So
and with the Destiny games, obviously, they've had a weird history. Obviously, they came out and review scores weren't great, but there was still the cult following, and obviously you became part of that cult following, and you still get all of the cons and everything like that.
Yeah.
What is it about that game and both games that you love so much?
So it's a bit of everything, really. You listen to the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is just phenomenal. It has this really ethereal but massive, inspirational, a little bit of mystery, a bit of adventure, and you can hear all these little tones in the soundtrack. It's so well done. And then you've got the aesthetics of the game, the way even the UI is designed. Everything is it just, to me, that's my perfect aesthetic. So that hits me as well. And then the way it feels to play, it was always a really smooth feeling game. The gunplay felt fantastic, which coming from Halo, Call of Duty, that was, to me, that's what hooked me in the beginning. Yeah. And then just the attachment you got to the characters, because there weren't that many characters in Destiny to start with. You didn't have that much to attach to, and what was there got you.
And would you say, out of the two of them, obviously I know there's been all the countless season passes and everything as well, do you class Destiny 2 as better than the original?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm such a big fan of Destiny 1. Destiny 2 changed the game a little bit. I mean, literally changed the game. But it changed the feeling of the game for me, and it kind of put a different perspective on it in a way that I didn't connect to quite as much, I suppose. Destiny 1 just always had that whimsical like feeling to it, and there's nothing quite like, I mean, I played Destiny before I started streaming, and I've still got all these memories of playing the beta and like skimming across the Cosmodrome, and I'm there in my Sparrow, and it's like you can remember all these things so clearly in farming specific spots for like spin foil and stuff, and you don't get quite the same feeling out of Destiny 2 because at this point everything is for content, and like everything is so like data mined. There's not as much mystery to everything as there was back for me.
See, I was going to say what would make Destiny 1 better than Destiny 2, but then you've sort of just answered that, I suppose. So I suppose the next question would be like because you still play Destiny from time to time, yes. I imagine, but there's a lot of people, myself included, I played a lot of the first Destiny and then just sort of went away from it. What do you think is needed now that obviously Bungie have control and they're going to start doing new things to get people coming back to Destiny?
It just needs to regain its soul a little bit, I think. It kind of, they tried to do a lot in Destiny 2 with changing the way your abilities work, changing the way the classes works, the guns, and they changed so much that it stopped feeling personal. And they're going back into fixing that with Armor 2.0, all these things they're bringing to Shadowkeep. They are trying to bring a lot more of the personalization back, but they lost that, and that lost me a little bit as well. But I think the content they're bringing out is actually really good. I'm enjoying the puzzles, and I'm enjoying the mystery, the way that it brings the community together. But it's always going to be a case of there just not being enough, I think, for people to sink their teeth into. Yeah,
because would you say like part of the issue is, I suppose, because you said what you liked about the original was that it was mysterious in the way it was. It didn't give you too much. Would you say they're trying to expand the lore a touch too much these days, or? I
think they are a little bit all over the place, and it feels at the moment it's kind of like, how does it all tie in? Tell me more. But yeah, I mean, I was always a big fan of the lore. I love reading up on it because it is fascinating. But it is kind of, you do get this impression like they're just writing this as they go along. So I do wish there was a bit more foreshadowing to things, a little bit more knowledge that is going to be brought into that expansions going forward.
And I suppose like at the start they said it's going to be a 10-year game, so hopefully it is.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, they brought out like the Curse of Osiris DLC, and like back in Destiny 1 it's like, oh my god, Osiris, that's amazing. And like these DLCs they brought out last year, every time they teased the DLC you're like, oh my god, these are characters that I've heard about in the lore, this is going to be amazing. And then it ended up just being really disappointing, and like you didn't feel like they did those characters justice. So yeah, I'm hoping we get just a bit more depth back into everything they managed to build. It kind of fell flat, I think, a little bit, and hopefully they kind of learn from that. Yeah,
and obviously Destiny games are infamous for their extremely long raids. What's the longest you've spent in a raid?
Oh my god. So I actually got a post on my Instagram. I was looking at this the other day. My first time playing the Vault of Glass, which is the very first raid you play in Destiny. It came out a month after Destiny 1 release, I think. And it took us 6 to 7 hours to finish that one because, and back then there was no guides. You had like nothing. You're going in blind. I mean, people were kind of like posting in the community on the Reddit, like, oh, I've just found a way to do this bit. Like if you go, go around the Gorgon maze this way, you won't die as much. But it was a really interesting time because you had to use LFG. So you're going on like Destiny LFG, you're going finding all these strangers, and it was playing with a bunch of really cynical Scottish people who get going, fuck this, I want to play Call of Duty, you know what I mean? They're all like really desperate to not play Destiny anymore. But it was a really memorable experience because then at the end, I got my full Vault of Glass raid gear and I'm like, this is the best thing ever.
There's something like endearing about playing games with people who really don't want to be as well, because it's just like they hate every second, but they're still there till the end. They can't bring themselves to quit.
It was so funny because I think it took us 2 attempts as well. It was 2 separate chunks of playing to eventually finish it, and they were just we were like, oh god, we're gonna have to go back with them, aren't we? We're gonna have to play with them again.
Hazarding again, I mean, you might know the exact answer to this because obviously I know they do track hours played, but how many hours do you think you've put into Destiny and Destiny 2?
So I've played on Xbox, on PlayStation, and on PC at this point. And I think, I mean, easily over 2,000 hours. I think we're probably edging over 3,000 hours at this point. I couldn't really say, because in my head, I'm like, yeah, 3,000 to 4,000 easy. But then I'm like, well, actually, realistically. But then it's hard to say because I've deleted 4 or 5 characters at this point. I mean, I remember when Destiny 1, you'd be making a new character so you could farm things for the raid and then delete them and do it again so you could get those resets every week. But so probably a lot of time wasted on those characters.
It's not wasted. You had fun.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun grinding. Yeah.
Here's like is grinding in video games healthy? Because like, I mean, I've done it for years with various RPG sort of stuff, but like, as you said, like, you're there, sort of there just like, is this wasted time?
Well, so lately I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft. Obviously Classic came out, and I've been spending a lot of my time grinding World of Warcraft to the point where you're like at the auction house buying more ore so I can level up my blacksmithing. 3 hours have passed. I've gained 17 levels in blacksmithing, but what else have I done with my life? Not much. And it's kind of that point where you're like, great, I feel like I've achieved something in this game, and then you kind of like sit back in your chair, you're like looking around your room like, right, okay, now what? So it's fun in a way, and I have a lot of memories of those grinds, and I wouldn't go back and change anything, but sometimes you kind of sit and look at yourself outside of the bubble and you're like, oh my god, I could have spent time doing something like tangible with my hands. I could have done something.
It's I always remember in the past I used to have a habit of, I think it's like Football Manager 08 sort of time, but I would play that whilst then playing another game, whilst then watching TV, and it's like, why am I doing all this? Why don't I just concentrate on one thing or like do something else, I suppose? But
I know, I'm like same. I'm like in a voice call. I have like another stream on the side. I'll be watching that. I'll be trying to do this. I'll be on my phone, like, you know, looking through Instagram and stuff, just grinding. AFK.
Obviously, not disappointment in the grinding side of things, but I suppose like it's not an achievement you're necessarily proud of. But what would you say is your like most proudest gaming achievement so far?
Ooh. The one, every time someone says achievement, the one that always comes to my head is, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was called Monument to Their Sins or something. It was in Halo Reach, and it was one where you had to jump off a cliff and backstab an elite, and it was really hard. You had to do it on like legendary difficulty or something, I think. I can't quite remember the details. I'm sure someone will like call me out and be like, actually. But I remember I was trying this over and over and over again, because like I wasn't fantastic at FPSs back then. I've kind of grown a lot and now I'm a lot better, but I just really felt determined to do it, and eventually I did it, and I felt so like, yes, finally. And it wasn't even a particularly amazing achievement, but it was just I'd spent ages doing it and achieved it.
I think, and obviously it's stuck in your mind like all these years on sort of thing. So
yeah, it's like easily 10, 11 years on now that I still remember it. So.
And in terms of streaming, I know your career sort of started with doing Destiny, but were you streaming anything before Destiny, or was that how it all started? No,
it all started with Destiny. It was just before Crota's End came out, and this was like famously known within the Destiny community as a bit of a lull in the content. There was nothing. There's nothing to do. Everyone was complaining about Destiny. Everyone was like, "Oh, there's no content. It's a rubbish game. Get a refund." And I just was so in love with the game. I just finished a cosplay. I was like, and I did my full Vault of Glass Warlock set. That was my peak cosplay dream right there. So I just finished it, and I actually started to stream GTA 5, but when I turned it on and I started trying to stream it, the loading times in GTA 5 were abysmal. They still are. And this was back in the Xbox, it was just when Xbox One had just launched, I think, a year after. And it was just, I was there, sat there streaming going, this isn't content. Like, no one wants to watch a loading screen. And it would just disconnect all the time. So you'd be back in the loading screen again after about 5 minutes. I just thought, okay, right, fine, we'll go play Destiny instead. So I stuck on Destiny, and then the rest is history, as they say.
And had you made any gaming videos before that, like on YouTube or anything like that? Or was it just literally you jumped into Twitch?
So, there was always attempts. I remember I had some friends, we were always like heavily inspired by like Achievement Hunter, and they were like, oh, I loved watching them so much. So Achievement Hunter and Funhouse were just amazing, or Inside Gaming as they used to be known. And they do like Let's Plays all the time. So me and my friends would always attempt to do Let's Plays. And it didn't ever work out very well. I don't think we ever ended up actually publishing anything, but we tried. I think I put a mini Fallout New Vegas reel on once on YouTube. I don't know where that's gone.
And would you say for doing Let's Plays and stuff like that, is Twitch just the better platform most of the time?
It really depends. Like, I've started to look into YouTube a bit more recently, because I didn't think there'd be any audience for really long form Let's Plays where you sat there for hours just playing a game. But apparently I'm extremely wrong, and people really enjoy watching. Like I've always been attracted to the, cut downs where it's like just funny moments and stuff. Like, I mean, Inside Gaming brought me out of a really dark place when I felt like really low emotionally. I would watch their cut downs and they would never fail to make me laugh. So that always that inspired me to also make people laugh. So that's why I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself with the Twitch side of things, because I expect my content to always be like hilarious and like the best content, and always be making people smile and always be making people happy, which isn't necessarily sustainable on Twitch because you are sat there for quite a few hours, and if you can make everyone laugh continuously for like 4 or 5 hours, then you're a wizard, quite frankly.
I mean, stand-up comedians can't even do that, really.
I know, and this is the thing I compare to all the time. Stand-up comedians, like, they're doing the same set every night. On Twitch, you've got to do a different show every single day, otherwise people are like, oh, I saw this already. I don't want to see this again.
What would you say is the funniest thing that's happened to you on stream?
That's really hard. There's like, because every stream has a moment. Like last night I was playing this game that just came out called Untitled Goose game, and it was just the best thing ever. And it was so wholesome to the point where you could run around honking as a goose, and you can go pick up this guy's harmonica and you're honking in a harmonica, so it's hilarious. Yeah. But then there's other standout moments, like I played Fallout 4, and there was a point where I just completely broke Nick Valentine, and he was just like, he was zooming around T-posing everywhere, and it was just, he didn't stop doing it for like 10 minutes. And it was just the most ridiculous 10 minutes of him zooming around. But yeah, there's always like hilarious moments, mostly unintentional on streams. So
yeah. And obviously you've worked with, outside of stream, you've worked with various brands, and obviously you now work with Xbox UK. So not including Xbox UK, because I imagine you're sort of like, maybe not contractually obliged, but I'm not going to make you say something otherwise. But what's been like the most interesting brand piece you've sort of worked on?
So actually, yeah, there was an Xbox one before I worked with them, because before I do work with them, they did invite me to a lot of the influencer kind of stuff, and it was a Halo Wars 2 event. And regardless of your thoughts on the game, it was like I was invited for a capture event, and I was like, oh, I like Halo, I'll go along, see what it's like, I suppose. I turn up, they mic me up, I'm like, why am I getting mic'd up for a capture event? What's going on here? And then they say, right, okay, it's your turn to do capture. So if you just go down that corridor, someone will direct you where you're going. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I walk down this corridor. Someone points me down another corridor. It's all filled with smoke. I'm like, what is going on here? So I walk in, it's like this big cube, and I go up these stairs, and I'm suddenly locked in this cube. There's a massive TV in front of me, and it turns out it's a live set from inside like a UNSC, like, you know, Pelican or whatever they ended up making it. And it was supposed to be a live experience. So they had actors. I was like playing the game, halfway through the game stops, and this like commander just walks in, and he's just like getting me to make all the decisions, and like all my team are dying around me. And it was like completely unexpected. The set's falling apart around me, it's all rumbling and shaking. It was really cool, but I was like, you baited me. But I got to do another Xbox thing, actually. They do put on some really cool events, I have to say. Like, fair play to them. I got to fly out to Seattle and do a State of Decay escape room, where they essentially took over a working hospital. They took over a wing of a working hospital. Which is like, I mean, I found that out afterwards.
So it was still active hospital?
It was a mental health hospital, I think. Like, it was a rehab sort of place. And they took over this wing to turn it into a zombie set, because it was like all set in a hospital sort of setting. I didn't know that till afterwards. So like, we're running around this escape room, destroying the place, like absolutely like obliterating like all this hospital equipment. And then afterwards they're like, yeah, we've had to guide the patients away today because it's obviously we couldn't see them in the set. And I was like, oh my god, I've just absolutely destroyed half the stuff in that room.
It also seems like a terrible thing to do in like a hospital.
Exactly. It was, I mean, yeah, but it was a really cool experience nonetheless, because it was a huge escape room, and it was a bespoke thing. So like, we were the only people to really experience it. And yeah, it was very fun.
And obviously, because you're more of a variety streamer, that's not easy to say about but because you're more of a variety streamer.
Sorry, I figured out the other day I can't say brewery.
Brewery. Now I don't think I can say it. Somebody said
if you say the word brew and worry.
Yeah.
Brewery, but yeah.
But then that doesn't sound natural, I suppose. Anyway.
Because, variety streamer.
Yes, because that is what you are. Outside of Destiny, because obviously that is your favourite game, what are some of the other highlights of like games you've streamed, or what games would you like to stream more?
All right, so horror games are always like fascinating, because everybody absolutely loves to watch me shit my pants. So I played Until Dawn, and oh my god, like it was a 7-hour stream. I hated every single second of that stupid game. And at the end, I was so tense. Like, it was full of quick time events for people who don't know. It's like a real sort of role-playing horror game when it's full of quick time, quick decisions. Your choices will kill the characters if you're not careful. And I managed to kill like 3 people. Then I killed the dog. And at the end, like everyone in the stream is shouting at you. They're like, why did you do that? You made the wrong decision. And of course, at the time, you don't know because it's ambiguous. And it's like, do you want to save this dog or do you not want to save this dog? And you're like, oh, I want to save the dog. And obviously, you set in chain of events that just kill the dog anyway. Yeah. So you're just like, for God's sake. So yeah, at the end of that, I literally got to the credits and I started crying on stream. I was just like, I'm so glad it's over. And I felt so embarrassed because I was just so relieved that I ended up crying. And I hate crying, especially on stream. I'm like, no, I'm not crying. But that one got me.
It's such a weird game as well. What playing it now and watching videos now, because it's like Rami Malek's in it.
Yeah.
You've got Hayden from Heroes and the guy who's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's like, I can always forget his name.
It's a real ensemble, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I mean, only really Rami Malek, I suppose, is the one who's like a proper celebrity. Well, not proper celebrity. That's the wrong thing to say. Sorry about that. But you know, like it's weird seeing this game sort of from before he was famous, before other people sort of like have hit the spotlight. It's
really cool because there's a lot of games like that coming out now. I mean, we've got like Death Stranding, obviously we've got like Norman Reedus and like Keanu Reeves. But I mean, I was just involved with a project recently that's a live action game where it's a similar thing, cool. But like live action. And it's really cool watching more movie things being brought into the gaming world and like just the movie world harnessing that and vice versa. It's really nice watching that come together.
Yeah. What are you allowed to talk about the game that you're part of? Okay.
Yeah, it's called The Complex. Okay. And it's done by Wales Interactive and they're quite well known for doing like The Bunker and other sort of FMV games. So I've got like a little cameo role, do a little speaking bit in it, sort of bystander kind of thing. But yeah, it was really, really exciting because I've always wanted to do acting. So I finally got my chance to do something and it was for a game. And I was like, yeah!
It's like a double barrel thing. It's
exactly! The best part was, as well, I was writing at that point a script for The Bunker. So I was already writing about their previous game. And then I got an email and it was just like, would you consider being an extra for this game? And I was like, oh, would I ever? Absolutely. Yes, please, sign me up.
Did you play much like of the older FMV game stuff where it's like just terrible? I mean,
no,
I suppose
I haven't. No, it's probably a good job because it put me off. I'd have been like, oh, no thanks, don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah. But, I suppose the thing is like it's weird seeing FMV sort of live action stuff make a comeback and also quite decent as well.
Because it's so easy to do it badly, isn't it? Like it's so easy to just make it a bit like the choices don't matter, and it must be really hard to make those. They had to like make a bespoke choice sort of tree system, and they've got this whole piece of software they showed me where they have to like plan every single story aspect out, and it must have been really hard to film that and like reset everything over and over again for these different choices. You as a streamer, but also just you as a gamer who loves playing games, what do you want from the next generation of consoles, PS5 and Xbox Scarlet, that would one make your life better as a streamer but also just be fun as a gamer? That's really hard to say. My favourite games to stream, I'll be honest, I love FPSs, and that's where I got my sort of roots as in the modern day is in FPS games. But my favourite games to stream lately have been just like the one I did last night, the Goose game, because they are absolutely absurd. Like you just have the most fun in these really random environments, and I love games, and that's why like Minecraft is making such a big resurgence at the moment, because it is a game where you just make your own fun. And I think that's awesome because it harks back to when you're a kid, and when I was a kid, me and my sister used to play the weirdest games we'd come up with. Like we'd sit there with all of our stuffed toys on the bed together, and we'd be like, there's an electrical storm outside, we can't go out, we've got to stay here, we've got to be hidden inside our bunk bed, like if we go out we'll die. And you sit there for like 4 or 5 hours just playing this like pretend game, and literally Minecraft and games like that give you the opportunity to make that in a tangible space. And I think that's amazing. I love that you can do that these days. Use your imagination, but actually have something that everybody can be witness to at the same time, so it's not just in your head. So I think that's awesome, but that was a bit of a tangent. I think going forward, I'd love to see more augmented reality stuff implemented, and it is happening, but more stuff that ties into like bigger blockbuster games, so it kind of has more effect on, you know, like imagine, I mean, this is probably like very vague sounding, but there must be somewhere you can go out in an augmented reality environment and do things that affect your World of Warcraft. So, you know what I mean? Like be able to acquire items and loot in the real world and stuff would be really, really cool. And you've got that with like Minecraft Earth, and that's, I think, going to be quite a good pioneer in that field. That's what I'm excited. Maybe, well, no, I am excited. But with Pokemon Go and obviously new Pokemon games, like I feel they'll probably start trying to tie them in more and more, which kind of then ties in the augmented reality side. And it's interesting because that ties in quite well with, I mean, Twitch seems to be going less and less, well, not less into gaming, but it seems like even people on Twitch, a lot of them obviously want to see gaming.
Yeah.
But it seems people are quite interested still in the IRL side of things. And while it gets a bad rep, of course, because you get some bad actors, you get people who use the platform in a way that other people don't agree with.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there are a lot of people who are just generally interested in seeing that kind of less produced, but still like live vlog kind of content. And that's going to be interesting with AR games going forward, is seeing more of that and seeing how people creatively use that kind of content on Twitch.
Yeah. And what would you say is doing AR well at the moment?
It's hard to say. I mean, it was a pretty basic application, but the favorite application I've seen so far, I think it was the Call of Duty invitational thing they did. And they had like it was a little invite pass, and you could like scan it with your phone, and it came up with like all the like, loads of things popping up on the side that you could like view. And it was like really basic things to do with augmented reality, but it was a really cool like showcase of, because like Google Glass was like a big, oh my God, it's going to change the world. And it kind of didn't, but it gives me hope in the future that you'd be able to have some sort of thing where, like, imagine you looked at a building and it popped up with like what it was and like, who sort of was in there. And I don't know, I mean, it kind of is hard because I've got this like utopian ideal in my head where it's like, oh my God, futuristic, so cool. You get to see all these like this information and you have so much knowledge of the world around you. But at the same time, it's a security nightmare.
The sort of things like, I want the cyberpunk future, but also I'm terrified of the cyberpunk future.
Exactly. The way people would misuse that is horrifying. But at the same time, it would be, in an ideal world, amazing.
Yeah. And obviously you've done a lot of charity work over the years. What is like the most rewarding but also the most challenging side of doing stuff like that?
Oh, it's my inbox is full of people asking me to stream for charity, and I really hate turning people down, but I can't. There's a point where you can't ask a community for more than they're already given, you know. And there's a point where if you're doing like one charity and then the next week you've got another charity, and that's kind of how it ends up being a lot of the time when the amount of stuff I get in through my inbox, people are just like, oh, I just gave you like 20 quid last month, I can't afford it now, I can't afford to give you that. And it's like diminishing returns, and unfortunately that is a very real side effect of raising money. I do a lot of consultancy with charities to try and get them to get the most out of streamers. And it always goes back to authenticity, like making sure that the streamers they work with are people who really connect with the charity, because that's how people, if you connect with the charity, people will see that and be more likely to connect with you. So at the moment, all of my sub money for September is going to supportdogs.org.uk because they provide support dogs to people in need and they train them and stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, everyone loves dogs. No one's going to say no to dogs. But it was such a worthwhile cause to me that I wanted to help them any way I could. But I've worked with a lot of charities in the past. I've done like cancer research, Mind, Macmillan, St. Jude. And St. Jude they were always the most receptive ones, I think. And whilst they were an American-based hospital, they help children all over the world. And the stuff they do is really noble. And they always try their best to work really closely, especially with the Destiny community on Twitch. It was a really cool thing that has happened because that was not good English. It was really cool the way it happened with St. Jude and Destiny, because we did a community meetup in Florida one year. It was my first year of streaming, and I decided to go and visit my friends in Florida. And we were like, why don't we do a meetup at the same time while we're at it? So we did. We sort of said, we'll be at this bar at a certain time. If you want to come say hi, do it. And like 1,000 people turned up, and it was mental. And so that year we decided to stream for charity, and we just did like a couple of days before the meetup where we just kind of all streamed and we did some proceeds to charity. And the next year ended up being like an actual event where it was a week-long live stream where all the money went to charity. And I think last year, it was the 4th year running of doing this. I think it was 2.5 million we raised in the end. I say we, like I wasn't actually involved in last year's stream, because each year they've managed to grow it more and more to the point where like Ninja was on it and like all these like really, really big streamers like Dr. Lipo. And it's really, really awesome because people will see gaming as like, it's just rubbish, basement dwellers not helping society. But I mean, we as a collective raised enough money to run that entire cancer research hospital for an entire day. That's which great. Is insane because they pay, I mean, in America the healthcare bills are like massive, and St. Jude pay all of that, so kids don't have to pay and the parents don't have to pay a single penny when they get treatment. So sorry to rant on about St. Jude. They are an awesome charity and it's been a pleasure to help fundraise for them over the years.
And I suppose that's the thing, like I mean, with charity streams that happen as well a lot of the time, like do you do the 24-hour live streams?
No, I've done a 24-hour one, and it was, I don't like 24-hour live streams. I don't think they're healthy. For me, Twitch is about the entertainment, and that's why I personally do shorter streams, because I think 3 hours is a perfect amount of time for me to get the most out of the energy you've got. So yeah, I feel like 24-hour. The one we did was okay because it was a lot of streamers, and it was all heavily organized, so it was like lots of events going on, so it was constantly like entertaining. But I just don't. I think it promotes a bad sort of thing health-wise for people to do solo 24-hour streams.
I think that was the point I was I agree with. I think it is like they're great if you're working as a collective, but to try and do it yourself, like as someone that has stayed up for 24 hours before, it's not nice.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like streaming is silly to say because a lot of people like immediately go, but streaming takes a lot of energy. You know, it is hard on your like mentality. It's very fatiguing, especially. I mean, if you're listening, you probably can tell that I've got like a lot of exuberance, a lot of like energy, and even just 3 hours of doing that is exhausting because you're like non-stop talking, and that's. I mean, I get warm. I get like really hot, and my body's like, oh my god, slow down, please. But yeah, doing 24 hours of that would be ridiculous.
When you are streaming for charity, what sort of games do you think are the best to sort of play?
Charity games are always hard because often you can't do anything violent, and you can't. I mean, there's like very strict rules, of course. When we did streaming for St. Jude, where it was like, you can't say kill, you can't say die, you can't say like obviously any of these words that are quite understandably quite triggering to people who might be watching from the hospital. So yeah, I just like the silly games. I like doing little Minecraft challenges, and I haven't in the streams I've done. I haven't actually done anything like that. I did end up just playing Destiny. But I mean, that was the game that brought the community together for that particular stream, so it made sense.
And you know, you talking about obviously communities coming together. What's been like? Was that the best sort of like fan meetup experience you've had so far, or community meetup experience?
That was in 2015, that first bar meetup we did, and it was so hot in that bar that I had to sit down for half the meetup feeling faint. I was almost gonna like pass out because I was just so warm in there. So I was like trying my best to enjoy it, but inside I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. I've been so lucky to have so many good experiences with fan meetups in the past. I did one in Austin, Texas, where it was me and another streamer called T-Rex, and we met up with a bunch of people in a bar, and people asked me to like sign their phones, and I was like, oh my god, you don't want me to devalue your phone that much, trust me. But they were like, no please, and I was like, I don't want to tell you no, so okay, I'll do it, but have you got a case I could sign instead, maybe? But no, I've been so fortunate. I've got such a fantastic community, and I've met people at E3s, I've met people at like various events, and everyone's just always been so wonderful. It's always so humbling.
Yeah. And obviously, do you play games outside of doing the streams, or is it just you play a game and do the stream?
So when I was a full-time streamer, nowadays I work 4 to 5 days with Xbox a week, and I stream on the weekends. When I was a full-time streamer, I would never play games off stream. Okay. I was sometimes, if I was really heavily addicted to a game, like when Overwatch came out, I'd be like, I'd get off stream and I'd be like a little gremlin till 4 a.m. like, and it's the same with like Smite. I'd be playing that for like till the early hours as well. But now I play a lot of games off stream because I feel less guilty about not making content. Yeah. So now, like, I pretty much get home from work and I'll play World of Warcraft all night. So that's pretty much my addiction right now. It's either WoW or Rainbow Six or stuff that I don't feel is good content on stream because I think like WoW for me is not the most engaging game to play on stream. Like Rainbow Six is so hardcore, it's not fun to stream for me. Yeah. So yeah, I love playing those off stream.
And so how many hours do you think you probably play games at the moment a week?
Does that include work?
It can include work. Okay,
so let's say 3 hours of stream a day for Xbox. So that's times 4. So I'm not very good at maths, so you figure that out. That's like 12. And I go home and I play for like 3 to 4 hours a night maybe as well, which is really bad. It depends. If I'm like really heavily into a game, it could be up to 3 to 4 hours. So shall I just say around about a figure of like 40 to 50 hours maybe? That's fine. Like, it's basically a full-time job in its own right.
Yeah. It's the same issue for, well, not issue at all, but like it's the same with me. Like I love games, I work in games, going to play a lot of games probably.
Yeah, well this is the thing. I mean, I have like the added excuse of it being research. Like I get accused every single day on the YouTube and stuff. The YouTube. I sounded about 50 years old then. On the YouTube. I get accused all the time of not being a real gamer. She's just paid to read scripts. She's never touched a game in her life. And I was just like, oh my God, if only you knew. Like, you're so ignorant. Because I play games so much. Yeah. And I love, now I get away with playing games a lot more because it's kind of research and it gives me more authority. And I can speak confidently about games and I love that. And I hope that comes across when people actually listen and don't just like make assumptions.
It's always ridiculous. Like I think people like just complaining at people anyway. It's like we've posted we posted a video of a racing game with that professional e-rally driver captured for us.
Yeah.
And people were like, this is terrible. And it's like, literally one of the best players in the world. It's good gameplay.
Oh, people are so frustrating. It's like, I think the thing is people like to feel like they're correct. People like to feel right, and often they'll just say these things because they want some validation back, and I get it. Unfortunately, it just sucks to be them, really, because they're closed in their own minds.
And obviously, because when you started working with Xbox UK, you hadn't done presenting before, is that correct? What's been like the biggest challenge, I suppose, in terms of getting more used to doing the presenting side of things?
You know what? It's really narcissistic, but it was getting over my own face, like on camera, because it is a thing where you can't control your own image, and suddenly you're on camera in a way that, like, I'm really self-conscious about my eyes, because I've got one of my eyes turns in a little bit, and I've had like 2 surgeries on it, but unfortunately it's still an issue. So when I look straight down a camera, sometimes it kind of, you can tell. And that was the real big thing for me to try and get over, being self-conscious. And of course, people make comments on it, and that doesn't help. But you're like, well, of course they're going to make comments, because they're just either clueless or they want to undermine your confidence. But so you kind of learn to ignore it, because you're like, well, you know, if I don't ignore it, then I'm not going to improve at my craft. But I mean, I was always that kid who was like that obnoxious kid who was chosen to do all the readings and assemblies, like got to be the voice of God once from the rafters. So I've always been quite confident in talking. So reading from the teleprompter stuff was always fine. I got to host Inside Xbox, which is like their big show at Gamescom, and that was quite scary because I'd never done on-stage hosting. So that was my very first time doing a live show in that regard, where it was like actually live with lots of segments, with a teleprompter and a live audience at the same time. So that was absolutely terrifying, but people were really nice about it. So
because the negative comments and stuff are just always a terrible thing for that people get in, whether it's streaming or presenting sort of stuff. What is the main thing you would say to anyone that is trying to get into it and is like maybe has had their confidence knocked by someone being mean?
Well, it's really hard to say something without being generic and like cliche, because at the end of the day, the cliches are true for a reason. You know, people they don't matter. Those people, it's something I've come to terms with recently, because I've been really scared to post certain content on my own social media. I'm like, this is my social media, I should be able to post whatever I want. But if I go too cutesy and girly, I'm like, oh, people will never take me seriously. But I kind of realized that, you know, through the YouTube comments, through the nasty comments, that there's people who just won't take you seriously anyway. They will hate you no matter what. So like, what is the point in feeling beholden to pleasing those people when they don't give a crap either way? Why should you please them? There's a point where if you have an opinion, there's probably like 50% of people out there who will really dislike you for that opinion. So no matter what you do, if you don't say anything at all, you're not got a personality. So you have to force yourself to accept the fact that there's going to be people who dislike you no matter what, and you've just got to get over that. People will be more forcible about it. Be you, I guess. Yeah, be you. And the other thing is, a lot of people get into content creation and presenting, and they just have like a one-track mind of, I just want to be good at that. But I've found in this industry in particular that it's an amalgamation of all your skills that come into making you who you are on camera. So it's like, never give up on all those little weird passions you've got. Don't give up on your education and stuff like that, because it will help you in such weird ways that you will never expect it to help you with. Like just me doing like cosplay and like art and like all these little interests I've got have all come into my job at Xbox, and I never thought they would, but they have.
And what has been your favourite cosplay, do you think?
That's a hard one. It's probably my Destiny, my Warlock, I think, was my defining point for me, because I'd self-taught sewing, I was self-taught all of my cosplay stuff. So that came together in a way exactly how I'd hoped it would. And it was like, I'm so specific when it comes to cosplays. I'm like, it has to be accurate to a T. And that was as accurate as it could be. And I was so happy at the end of that it came out that way. But and my Gage cosplay, did Gage from Borderlands too. So that was a good one as well.
And I like to end the podcast because, you know, some questions in the podcast might be a touch heavy. I like to end the podcast with just a very strange question, which is, if you had to replace either an arm or a leg with cheese, what limb would it be and what cheese would it be?
I think it has to be a leg, because I need my hands for the games. And also, if it was my arm, I'd probably eat it by accident. Is it like ever regenning cheese? Like, is it just...
I say yes. I don't know why. I don't know. I had to say that like that, but yes.
I think it would maybe be a Parmesan. Yeah, because like, you know, if you've got a block of Parmesan, it's like really, it's solid. You know, you could walk on that. So I think that's probably a solid choice.
It's a good choice. Which leg would it be?
I don't know, which one like's my worst? I've got a cool tattoo on my right one, so I'll do my left.
But then you could have like a cheese tattoo. That could be cool.
That would be cool, yeah. It'd be Stinky Cheese, the emote from Twitch.
So if people wanted to watch more of you, whereabouts could they find you?
So you can find me on twitch.tv/Leah, or you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and recently TikTok, to my absolute shame, as Leahviathan.
Cool. And yeah, obviously this has been my first time. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, whether you've been watching on YouTube or the podcast app of your choice, make sure to leave us some love, leave a comment, etc. and so forth. But until next time, goodbye.
Bye.